Welcome to the Post Shift Podcast, your raw look at the hospitality industry, brought to you by SHC. What is happening, Post Shifters? Welcome back to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. Last week, I hope you saw the one with Giacomo from Paradiso. That was our 50th episode for season 6. So I think that just crosses over 400 episodes total over the last little while. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm going to the stage now. I'm going to tell the story because I got into the stage now in the podcasting world that I have a lot of connections with PR companies and that sort of thing. They keep sending me people. So I start getting the people that I've got on my like top 10 list of people that I want to have on the show. And Hayden Lambert's one of them. He runs and owns Above Board in Melbourne. It's a 12-seat bar. So if you ever want to know about the romantic nature of small bars and actually making money, he's going to give some insight into that. I'm just going to click one more button because I'm the one-man show on this side. So I wish I had a producer sitting in the corner giving me thumbs up and giving me direction. But Hayden, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Shawn. How are you? If you want to open a small bar, don't do it.
Well, because that's the thing is it's always the romantic of like, oh, I want to have a small bar and just be able to serve it myself and do these sort of things. But the operational nature of the bar is just so much more than just serving a drink to a guest, and then also making money from it is just so much more.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of like, I mean, that's a good point. I think a lot of the time we don't think about the kind of like the financial part of doing that stuff, right? Because we're making drinks, we're bartenders, we're obviously on a platform stage where there's that kind of like, not acting, but that kind of grandiose style of thinking. And then you go on, it doesn't matter what business it is, you go and open a business and then you're thrust into a world that has an infinite more amount of challenges than just a logistical part of serving a drink. And I think, like you pointed out, it's romantic. Like I got there through the point of like, I think I was ready to open my own bar. Financially, we didn't have a ton of money. And then on top of that, the space came up and it all just came together. And my experience working in, like 5-star hotel, dive bar, campsite, and then small, tiny bar in Melbourne at Bar Americano, pushed me into a point where I was capable of running the bar by myself, and having that romantic point of view, but I didn't think it was romantic. I just thought, well, I'm capable. That's what I've been kind of training for over the last 10 years. And then, the reality of it hits you, you have to, like expand, get smaller, do all the businessy stuff, which I'm actually the worst guy to talk to about business because I'm pretty sure it just happens by itself, just like the washing and I come home and the house is clean, and I'm like, how did this happen?
How did you get into hospitality? What's like your elevator pitch on your origin story?
On my origin story, I was useless at everything else. Look, I don't know. We bring it up. I left. I'm a Kiwi, and I left New Zealand a long time ago, and I didn't have any qualifications. I tried to do. What would it be? It would be like TAFE over here. I tried to do a TAFE course that was business computing, but it was mostly computing. I wasn't really good at it, and it frustrates me to this day that I wasn't very good at it. But I'm not great at letters and numeracy and all that type of stuff. And so I tried that, and I got to the point where I left New Zealand, and the only job I could really get was in hospitality. Like, it was the entry level to that career is pretty small. You just have to have a willingness to show up. And so that's how I got my start. I don't think it was planned. I didn't plan to be a bartender. Or maybe I did. Maybe if I really think hard about it, I did, maybe cocktail did really, really, like when it came out in like 83, 84, it really shaped my perspective. I knew I was going to be a fighter pilot. So Top Gun wasn't, my go, but and then Days of Thunder was probably, I was going to be a race car driver. So maybe
or Indiana Jones.
Yeah, for sure. Man, Indiana Jones. Yeah. They make so many people got into that kind of career for that one thing and realized that all you're going to do is dust. You're going to spend their hours digging out in the dirt with a small spoon and a mascara brush,
So with Above Board, you've been open for about 2 years now, a little bit longer than
we're on 8 years nearly, I think.
Oh,
so late November 2016, Shawn, we opened up.
That's right.
No, that's okay. And but 2 years would be I'd look way younger if it was 2 years. Yeah, so 8 years.
Wow. And so from the get-go, what was the core idea behind it? As you sort of mentioned before, is like you sort of felt like you were in that space to do a small bar and do
Mhm.
that. How has it evolved from the core idea to now?
Look, I think we roughly still hold true to the core belief that we started off with, which was, as I've had a chance to explain it a lot more on the podcast. It was a reductionist theory versus minimalist theory. Just reduce everything. What is the base level of what you need to
Mhm.
create a functional good cocktail bar? And then we still have that. And then I think the pandemic really changed the way that I thought about the business. So it put me into the space of actually, like before, it was easy. You turn up, people come in, you're surviving, and then you
Mhm.
actually have to think about the business and how you grow the business. And we made some executive decisions that we executed. Like I'll give you the kind of, not the elevator pitch, but the original idea was open above board, have a 16-seater cocktail bar, right, and then on the right hand side of my bar, I had a little bit of extra space, so it was always going to turn that into a unique event space because later on we'll get down to it. But it was a way that maybe I could give back to the community. We could do some cool events. If guest bartenders came in, we
Mhm.
had a space that they could occupy. And so in 2020, we executed that and we opened up another little area with another bar. So we actually have two bars and two spaces. And the main operational functional part is above board 7 days a week, and then the extra space that we have is like 3 days a week, Thursday to Friday, or throughout Thursday to Saturday. Sorry, and then in I think October 2024, we built an actual bar in there. So we have two spaces now, but the primary space is above board. Um, the the whole part of it was to create this kind of like ecosystem that worked really, really well. I'm not sure if that answered your question because I went on a
No,
bit of a.
it does. Like with you mentioning reductionist over minimalist,
Mm.
really 8 years ago, minimalism wasn't even sort of in the vernacular of bars quite yet. Like not as prolific as it is now, which to be honest, I hate minimalism. That's just my
Do you hate it? That's
it
okay. Look,
just
I can.
I'm a
I
classic
get
hotel
it.
bartender, so like I'm a classic, like give me a Riddell cut crystal sort of glass.
Yeah.
I appreciate it for what it is. I appreciate
Well,
it for what it is, just
I
not
think
my
that
style.
I think, Sean, when I came to the minimalism part, like the philosophy of minimalism, like now it's a selling point, right? It's a
Mhm,
unique selling point, and like when I first opened up, we we're Kiwis, so the business is predominantly owned by a couple Kiwis and an American, and we're pretty hard at selling ourselves, right? Australia and New Zealand people have a real issue with the way that they present to the world. I think we have tall poppy syndrome in both countries. We're not allowed to
mhm,
tell people that we're actually really good at something, right? We have to you hold this weird edge of being humble, but you're braggadocio, um, and so I really didn't find the correct vernacular to describe above board. And so it fell into a minimalism category. I think what it came down to a lot of the time is that one, I was a kind of more classic bartending, right? So that's one of it. Uh, I just started seeing the need for unnecessary garnishing. I think that was a
mhm.
big point as well. I haven't had a chance to chat about this, but I started seeing fucking pegs on drinks everywhere and dehydrated, dead-looking fruit, and I was
Yeah,
like, "Wow, do you think that really looks nice? This dehydrated piece of fruit that,
black
yeah, it
line.
looks
Yeah,
black, exactly,
yeah.
and crinkly." Like, and if you serve, like, I mean, if a chef looked at that, he'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing with that?" But bartenders thought it was cool, and
Mhm.
these tiny little pegs that you put on everywhere. I'm like, what? Who invented that? There's not small enough people in the world to have pegs that big, right? And so I was always kind of confounded by this unnecessary need for embellishment, and I think that fits in with maybe Australia, and New Zealand, but the unnecessary need for embellishment just pulled certain things back. And then, say like garnish style, it was like, well, if you can't use it and it's not there to represent part of the drink, and I had pretty big discussion with some cool bartenders about this stuff, is like, why do we need it? So let's remove it if we
Mhm,
don't need it, right? So it was that, as I said, it was that reductionist. Let's pull back some of these things, and financially, it didn't always make sense to add a garnish that you weren't using.
mhm,
Glassware was really important, but glassware in Australia is relatively tough to get. And then on top of that, I think in my original business pitch, I had Baccarat Crystal as the rocks glass, right? So So it's like trying to, yeah, exactly. Like who was thinking that, right? Like obviously. No, I think, and so the Baccarat crystal idea was like, well, if you're going to invest in the things and you're going to make it minimal, you may as well make the glassware really
Mm,
important, right? Because that's a touch that we all enjoy. It's a tactile touch. And so I went maybe with that idea more than the kind of like, how do we make it minimalist? Is like, okay, we'll focus on the details. And above board, especially the bar top, is exactly like that. It's a bar top, but it's a very beautiful bar top, and there's
mm.
tiny details. And if you're paying attention, you're looking and you go, "Wow, that's a really colorful piece of wood." You know, like there's reds, there's yellows, and it's not just, it's about you as a consumer searching for the detail and point of view
Mhm.
in there, right?
So with that in mind, like 8 years for any bar is great. Like
Mhm.
that's a good track run. You know, once you start getting to your decade line, you've done something right. With it being such a small bar
Mhm.
and everything being out on display at all times, how do you keep your standards high with your team, yourself and your team? Because 8 years every year, like going to the Super Bowl every night, is not always the easiest thing for anyone to do.
Yeah, good, man. That's a good point. I don't actually know. Really, I really don't. I wish, like, coming from, like, as I said in the very beginning, I really struggled with numeracy and articulation in writing my whole life. And I think the interesting part about that is, above board is a very, very much a word of mouth bar, but it also has people who inhabit it that you can't control, right? So, like each one of my bartenders has a different style, a different personality,
Mhm.
and has a different work ethic, and that's a really important part, right? And the team part is that each one of them, if the other one is not as good at one thing, gets better at the other thing. And I hate to use the word thing because it doesn't sound that articulate, but if someone's not so great at communicating, we always try to put someone on that's really good at communicating,
Mhm.
so you got that quiet and the loud. And then on top of that, my team know that there's an expectation from me because they just get a look over the top of the glasses, right? So if I'm working with them and I think someone's not doing the right thing, um, well, I mean, I give them the look. There's a certain amount of information that we have in the background that I put together, but I think we're 8 years in, and most of my staff have now been with me a year, 2 years. So there's a high expectation of what I expect from them, and
Mm.
and it's above board. Like, I mean, they walk in and they know it's above board too, and they're trying to give their best service. And we obviously fail at that, right? Like, so you can see the 1-star reviews that we failed, or the 2-star, or the 3-star, and you do your best to mitigate all those things. But I think it's just everybody having the belief that above board is greater than themselves, right? And
Mhm.
and hospitality post lockdown has produced different mentality about how people work, and so navigating that has been tough. And if you like, I mean, the people who work at above board really want to work at above board. They don't want to
Mm.
work somewhere else, right? And I think that ensures their consistency. There's team briefings that we have. We've fallen off that a little bit because we've had change of staff, different pace, but in general, we do team briefing if there's two or three more of us, and then we talk about it. If there's something that's brought up in like the reviews are an important thing, but you can't get too hung up on them, even though I
Mhm.
do. Um, I say that out loud, and then I secretly I'm like, who wrote this about me this time, right? Like,
Yeah.
and the old adage is just don't read the comments. But like sometimes, that you can take away and garner a lot of information from those reviews, and then
Mhm.
reapproach role play. Like, I mean, we've role played a couple of things because I think one of the serious things is when you're a 16-seater cocktail bar and you go from being empty to full, you
Mm.
have to have queue management, and that's probably been one of the toughest things that we've had to deal with. The expectation of 20 people trying to come to a 16-seater cocktail bar all at once, that's really tough, and there's no training for that in any type of bar in general. Like, there's
Mhm.
no queue management system. So I think that's been one of the hardest things, and the consistency is, man, we're all working to the same thing. The bar and its operational style, Sean, the way that it works behind allows you to be a lot more consistent than you think. It
Mm.
actually forces you to work in a particular way. And then, hopefully you've done the right amount of, you know, not training because like, obviously there should be training. But the one-on-one training, you get to work with me a lot, right? And, if you're in the beginning of coming to the bar, you get to work with me on a daily basis. Like at the moment, I'm training up Jada, and Jada is working with me pretty much 3-4 days a week. So now we're in a position where I can push my ideas directly onto my next employee, and she's
Hmm.
wonderful. And then when they get to train, they get to do the same, right? And they get to hold the standard, and they get upset when the standard isn't upheld because they're proud of their work,
Hmm.
right? So, it's making sure that they're super proud of what they do because, we try to execute at a high level all the time.
Do you still work the bar like pretty constantly, pretty regularly?
Well, for a while I didn't actually. I was the king dishwasher guy, right? Like, no one talks about it. The full circle, the circle of life. Holding up Simba, and no, I've been off the bar technically for the last 2 years. Like, I do occasionally make a drink,
Hmm.
which really shakes your confidence because you're not used to making drinks all the time, right? And so there's a little bit of self doubt, and like there shouldn't be, but there is,
Yeah.
and then in the last few days because I've lost one of my, I've I've had a couple of staff leave. One of my guys is gone. He's gone back to Japan. He's a cool guy, and so I've had to take over the responsibility of making drinks again. So and I was on the bar last night, so I'm a little bit sore. You know,
Oh
so-
yeah, I am not 18, 19 anymore.
yeah,
That's for
well, I
sure.
mean, I'm 46 and I'm still slinging drinks. Like, like that's the romanticism of a small bar. There we go.
Exactly. Ex-
46 and still slinging drinks. I don't have a creative director's title. I'm not doing consultancy. I'm working in my bar like 5 nights a week or something. No, that's a lie. Four. I work in the bar 4 nights a week.
So for 8 years in, was there times when you're like, because a lot of bars reinvent themselves regularly, they'll do a rehash and a renovation, like
Mm.
an update and stuff like that. Have you done that at Above Board, or has it stayed pretty
Maybe,
much exactly your
maybe.
vision?
Nah, maybe the addition of the second room, but that's like, I mean, that's not a reinvention, right? So
Mm,
no. Look, I think Above Board has a product that when you walk in, I know you haven't been, but when you walk in, it looks nearly as new as it did when it
mm,
first opened, and because it has that reductionist, and we'll add the minimalist monkey to it, but because it has that reductionist idea, there's not much to it, right? And like it doesn't need a revamp. Maybe we've changed the style of drinks, and like I
mm,
haven't held hardcore to the original. I think maybe the original idea, but I think, yeah, 8 years. No, I think we've stayed pretty true to the core idea. We're flexible, but
mhm,
like I don't see it as a revamp. There won't be like, hey, tomorrow we're gonna completely change. We're gonna come
mhm,
seasonal, and I don't
mm,
think that's what I want. And I think a good bar, a really good bar, and especially the longevity of a good bar. And Melbourne has a few. Australia has a few. Is that like it kind of, you turn up and you get the same thing every time, right? Like, I mean, people are looking for comfort and consistency.
mhm,
Um, and I'd say the Everly was a great example, especially in Australia. The Everly was a great example, and the Black Pearl are another great example. You turn up and you know exactly what you're going to get.
mhm,
I think, I, I think if you're revamping your bar every 5 to 10 years, maybe you haven't got the original idea or concept. That's
mhm.
not a dig at anyone, right? Like,
No, no.
I'm not, I just think, we went in with a real hardcore philosophy. I have a hardcore philosophy, and when I'm removed or I have to leave, then maybe that's when changes will happen, right?
Mhm,
If someone wants to take over and put their own stamp on that business, they want to be in charge, and that could be amazing for that space, or it could be amazing for that person, but hey, I don't know.
mm. So when you were talking about business earlier and like the business of small bars, the
Mm.
romanticism of it all, do you have someone in your team that is like your minded person, like the person who's like, oh, or have you taught yourself over the 8 years of like how to maximize your bottom line and get that top line revenue up as much as
Oh,
possible?
well, yeah, I think that's a real tough one. So I have a business partner. Well, I have business partners, and financially they look after the back end, right? Like, so pay and all that type of stuff. Um, it's been. Do you remember the Simpsons episode where Bart goes to get like Lisa sets him up for a trap, and he gets to get the muffin or the cake off the
Yeah,
bookshelf,
yeah.
and he keeps touching it, and
Yeah.
And it's just electric shock every time, right? Like, and he lies on there. He's lying on the ground like, oh, that's pretty much business for me. I mean, that's such a great episode because it's such a great trap. I think I just keep I have to learn, and I'm a relatively slow learner. Um, and like there's parts of the business that I still really struggle with
Mhm.
and maintaining consistency with it. And it's such a weird dichotomy to have that you have this bar that is on every level consistent every night. It
Yeah.
has it's such a it is like, it's spot it's spotless. You have all these systems, you have these systems that magically happen, right? But like, and then you have to go and do a spreadsheet, and that's the most painful thing in the world.
Yeah. And then you've got
I
an
mean,
old mop bucket full of
yeah,
invoices.
for sure, and then that's that is the most painful thing ever. Or you have to worry about invoicing and payments and all that type of stuff. And I've never, there's times that I've been exceptional at getting all that stuff happening, and it's just learning through bumping into the wall every time and readjusting yourself, right? So, you know, I'm getting better, and a lot of it's self-taught.
Mm.
Like I don't have one consistent spreadsheet where I'm like, wow, I love this, you know. And everything's like I feel like everything's like a pay to play subscription where there's no one's just going, hey, by the way, hey, this is like this not like, I mean, this is a bit of a joke, but like there's no little appy thing that's just a self starter kit for small
Yeah.
bars or small businesses, right? That puts in all the templates forecasting, like profit and loss. And I say these things like I know what they mean, but they sound cool. Right? Like, and then intuitively for the bar and financially, Shawn, like, and to all the other people who listen, and working out your gross profit and your cost of drinks is super important.
Mhm.
Um, and when I first started, I remember having no clue because I've gone through the whole system without having like the managerial experience that you should get at a guy at the age that I am, right? Like 46, you should have held a proper manager's position in like a high end or whatever it
Mhm.
is. I think people gatekeep those a lot, that position. That means they don't have to get back into the bar. They can run it financially. And I never got given a template or a spreadsheet that said, hey, by the way, this equals this, makes this
Mhm.
amount of money. And then, because I used to work in Belfast in Northern Ireland, I had one of my customers from Belfast walk in. He's a really lovely guy called Brian, and he loves spreadsheets and all that type of stuff. So my original start with costing was Brian walking into the bar and he's like, "Right there, mate, how about ye?" And you're like, I'm like, "Wow, man, hey, cool." And he goes, I asked him what he was doing, and he works costing for big companies and the cost of goods for like Denny's and all those type of stuff,
Mhm.
all that type of, and so he threw me a spreadsheet, and then I back engineered that and then added that later on. And so I think intuitively I knew where I was heading financially. And that's one of the key successes for above board is that part, which sounds like I have it all together, but a lot of it's like, magic. It really
Yeah.
is magic, you know. And some of the ideas, the hypothesis was, well, if we do this, we'll get that outcome. And then, like, I can't tell you how I got that outcome. I wish I could. I wish there was I could just bring up a spreadsheet and show you like, oh, that's exactly how we got
Mm.
there. I would be lying if I said I was good at that. I'm really good at it.
Well, it's good, honestly. Like, I do think that, like, a lot of bartenders get into that position where they're like, "I wanna open a bar."
Mhm.
And we recently had here in Victoria, we had a restaurant open up, spent $14 million on the opening. Like,
What?
yeah, oh, yeah. Huge amount of money.
Well, they're getting it
Um,
from an NGO.
2 million dollars in the kitchen.
What?
Oh yeah, they own a hockey team. They own the Vancouver
Okay.
hockey team. They own the
Okay.
Canucks. So it's a big vanity project. But there's been a
Mhm.
couple of young chefs that come out of that, sit at my
Mhm.
bar and be like, "Oh, I really think with like look how popular this restaurant. I'm not going to use the name. Everybody's going to know what it is, but
Mhm.
um, look how popular this place is. About we could do that and open our own restaurant." I'm like, Yeah, but they don't care about your labor costs or your
Oh,
cost of
ooh,
goods or
yeah.
anything because if they break even, they'll be happy. They're not looking at
Yeah.
for profit. Like
Hey,
they're
like,
never going to pay for it off. But this
yeah.
this this perception that we can do the same thing,
Mhm.
and you're like, well, you can't. You're not going to go spend $500,000 on
Yeah.
a 12 seat space
Yeah,
and
for
think you're going
sure.
to be making money or buy yourself a job. Like, it's
Yeah.
just not going to happen.
No, that's true. But I think, like, as I said, there's no like we're going into this industry that is a lot of the time we cycle through people, right? We bring them up,
Hmm.
we teach them certain skills, and then they go on to do other things in society. And I think sometimes we're left out in that kind of like we have to be business people. And I think you like I could be really wrong on this, and saying it out loud, I have to not be careful, but I think everyone thinks that you're an accomplished business person the minute you open a bar,
Mm.
right? And it has this real zero sum mentality. You open a business, therefore you must be amazing at all business straight away, right? And it is like these lessons that you learn, and they're hard lessons a lot of the time. They're really tough, right? And
Hmm.
a lot of them are people management lessons that you don't want to be like your boss and the boss before you, and you don't want to continue that cyclic tradition. And I think a lot of people just go, "Oh, you open it, therefore you must be amazing and you must be making money." I remember one of my employees. He's like, "Yeah, yeah." Well, anyway, he goes, you must be loaded, right? And like I'm like, no, man, I have a 16-seater cocktail bar. Like it's pretty much, everything I have is in this world. All my money is here.
Hmm.
Everything that I've accumulated from the age of like when I really put my head down and started working to get a bar, everything that I've accumulated went into the opening of that business. And then the cash flow that I have is just a wage that I take from working, because I'm a working part of my bar. I'm not just
Hmm.
a turn up and like push a button and walk out at the end of in the middle of the shift, right? I'm still on a shift from 5 o'clock to well, actually sometimes 3:30 till 1:30 a.m., 2 a.m. And I work not continuously through that, but the first maybe hour and a half is doing the back end, which I really suffer with.
Hmm.
And then it's the front of house stuff, right? And he goes, "Oh, you must have a ton of money." And when I showed him my car, which is like a 2013 Kia Cerato that lost its bumper, and then some stranger on my street decided to put an Anarchy sticker on it, like Anarchy, like carved Anarchy into the side of it.
Oh,
Which
Jesus.
I'm quite impressed. It's quite punk, and I'm not very punk. And so, I think there's just this idea that these businesses just like roll over and there's cash everywhere, and it's not. Like labor costs, as you said, are expensive, and then the budgeting of food cost or beverage cost is expensive, and you're trying to make sure that you get all the money back, right? And you're not trying
Hmm.
to overcharge, you're not trying to undercharge, and you're trying to do these things that maintain your business, and that's really tough, and that's something that we don't communicate enough as a business. We're businesses first, right? And then we're hospitality businesses, and a lot of us become entrepreneurs in the hospitality sector, right?
Hmm.
But we don't talk about that. We have a real dirty idea about what business is and making money and trying to make sure that we stay alive and we stay profitable. But every other company is allowed to do whatever they want, right? And
Hmm.
so it's an interesting one. We're more excited about like young bartenders are more excited about trying to get into the next round of world class than understanding that there's an economy and it's a business. And like, and I'm really proud of all the people that get into world class, and I'm really for you, right? But at the same time, there's no world class for the business. It's just succeed or fail. And for me, there's been a lot of little failures that you don't talk about openly, but that you fail, right? And you
Hmm.
fail and you learn, and that's the kind of analogy that I was using about Bart Simpson. Like money's at the top with the muffin, and the business is it's the bookshelf being electrified every day, right?
Well, no, I think that's the thing is like you 9 times out of 10, most people open a bar for a passion reason, like it's a
Yeah,
passion project. That's the thing. And then
yeah,
when you do come successful and you open up a second place or you expand, it's you sold out.
mhm.
You're an entrepreneur
Yeah,
now, so you've sold out. You're a sellout
yeah,
now. 'Cause your
that
business, you're in the business side of things, and you
yeah.
can't be passionate anymore about the other stuff.
Yeah, that's super tough. It's like it's that's also kind of like the weird window where you're like, I don't see you in here anymore. So I keep
Yeah.
looking at my camera because I'm vain. But I don't see you in here anymore, and I'm like, well, I don't work Sundays.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're coming on Sundays, you're never going to see me, right? Like,
Yeah.
people are very limited, and we're all guilty of it, right, Sean? So like, I say these things, but I also, I've been guilty of all these ideas. And like coming back to that, have you sold out? Like, I mean, if I open a Bub Board 2.0, I'm pretty sure we'd get there. Oh, it's not as good. Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Like, okay, cool. everybody loves the first album of the band that they're in love with, and the second album is the band loves the music, right? They're like, oh, it's not pop, or and we're always going to face that problem, that issue, no matter what happens. And I think if you are like us or me, I would say that I've always wanted to open more bars, and I'm being honest about it. So it's like I want to be an entrepreneur in the hospitality sector, and I'm cool with opening 1,000 more 3-seater cocktail bars,
Hmm.
right? Because that's obviously a niche that I would be okay at filling. And I think that would be my forte. If you asked me to open a 10,000-seater cocktail bar, I think I would cry. That wouldn't be my thing, right? So
300
like,
seat Irish pub.
yeah. I mean, maybe my wife's from Northern Ireland, so
Oh,
we might be able to get it. We
it's,
might be able to
it's
get
on the
away with
cards.
it, right? Like, I just put her in there every night, and she'd be like, "Red card, I bet you, a Brandon Guinness." Anyway, that's not my wife's voice, but well, if it was, it'd be funny. So like for me, I would have no issue with that, and you're going to lose those people anyway, right? Like the everyone hates on everyone for the dumbest
Hmm.
reasons, and like maybe it's the jealousy, it's the little voice inside you, the dark little voice inside your head that says, like, you're not actually good enough, why aren't you competing, therefore I'm going to tear someone down.
Mm.
And this industry is hyper competitive, and it's got more, like, from I've been in it at a high level since about 2006. It's got way more hyper competitive, and I think that's driven through social media and then brands, and I think it's an accidental knock on effect. I don't think it's an intentional thing, but the listen that carry on and then move forward, the
Hmm.
trajectory, really hyper competitive. And so you're always going to have those people, like, some of my best customers in the beginning of a bub board don't come anymore. And it's disappointing, that they obviously wanted the attention in an empty bar. Right.
Mm.
And, that maybe they didn't want to see me be successful, but when they talked about the highlights of their life, I was happy for them to be successful. And like, I don't think it's success and financially, it's just having a full bar every night is successful for us.
Mm.
You know?
Do,
Having customers that wanna come back.
I've always been asked, like, why has Australia always had such a hugely impactful cocktail scene and like cocktail culture, hospitality culture? And I always
Mm.
say because Australians are inherently best mates, but
Mhm.
also inherently competitors and against each
Oh,
other.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, yeah. You
well,
you wanna see Davo drown when he's
yeah,
swimming.
exactly. You want to change,
You
you
want him to
exchange
win, but you'd be happy if he
ideas.
yeah.
Yeah, you'll
Yeah, that's
exchange
a
ideas, but
real
then you
tough
want to
one, huh?
compete against people. And in
Yeah.
Melbourne, have you found that the international sort of international influence in competitiveness has sort of taken away the Australianness of competitiveness?
I think okay, well, let's address the first one. I would say Australia is competitive across the board from everywhere. It doesn't matter. You could be in Kalgoorlie and trying to open a cocktail
Yeah,
bar, and then you're like, "Hey, by the way, I'm in competition with the pub board,"
yeah.
right? I mean, that's fun, but it's not really true, right? And I respect the person in Kalgoorlie who's going to open up a cocktail bar, right? That's go for it. That would be an awesome thing, right? You're like, this little oasis. Um, Naturally, as you said, I think Australians are more competitive than New Zealand people.
Mm,
But I think we're also very insulated. Like, Australia is insulated, and New Zealand too. Is that we don't? It doesn't seem, and I can only speak from my own point of view. It doesn't seem from a hospitality point of view in the bar industry that we pay much attention to international stuff
mm,
and trends. A little bit more than it used to be, but a little less. And you can see by the way that, like, there are certain trends that infiltrate, but it doesn't seem to, younger bartenders or bar owners don't look to the rest of the world. Oh, we need to do what Singapore's doing. We need to
mm,
do what New York's doing. I think it has a very kind of like natural, organic growth in the way that they do things, and it's still competitive. Like for me, in the beginning when I first got to Melbourne, I didn't realize how competitive it was, and I'm a huge shit talker. I love talking shit. Right? But I don't mean it. It's just like it's like when you play rugby or you play cricket,
oh, yeah, your
you're
best
always
mates. You,
it's
you're always shit
psychological,
talking it.
right? It's like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
shit. I mean, that is something Australia does really, really well, right? The sledging. I
yeah.
found out after I arrived here that it was called sledging. And like I'm thick skinned, but I'm thin skinned as well. So like I can give it, but I can't always take it. And like I'm guilty, right? Like I'm human. I'm only human. But like competitively, I don't think. Australia knows how to deal with the international competition,
Mm,
right? I don't think like, like maybe the maybe Sammy Group is a good example, and those guys are fun guys, and they've got a product that's very kind of European, Italian that they've dropped into Sydney, and it works in Sydney. It's flashy, it's nice, and like they're super guys. They've realized how competitive it is, and like I think. The other guys, and I can't speak for them, Caretakers, Cottage Birdie, and a couple of other bars have figured out how internationally competitive it is. Like,
mm,
each one of them has been involved in the international community more than a lot of other bar owners or bartenders, whatever, in Melbourne. And so I think the international competition is very different than the actual natural competition, because I think
mm,
a lot of the national competition is merit based, right? You're being judged by people that you're being awarded or whatever it is, and it has a very certain meritocracy, where the
mhm.
international competition doesn't seem to have meritocracy, right? And so it seems to be like more competitive and political and campaigning. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, more campaign, and so if you're like, I would say Australians are political, but they're not like the people in the bars aren't going, oh, you know what? We need to compete with Giacomo at Paradiso, right?
Mm,
Like that's a different level of competition. And like you're not if you I struggle with it immensely and what it is, because like I was always raised on the meritocracy system that if you're good at something, you'll be rewarded, right?
mhm,
And that's really difficult to go, hey, by the way, we can skip all the meritocracy and we just need to, be is in your face media wise, Instagram wise, and we have to have all these things locked down, which has really changed the kind of scape of how you do business. You
mhm.
know, I, I don't know. I don't know if
Oh
that's a
no,
good.
it's I think it's completely true. Like I have been in Victoria, small market for almost 20
Mhm,
years, and I've recently
mhm,
sort of been gained deeper into the Vancouver market, and
mhm,
night and day community standards, like
mhm.
the little clicks and the drama
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a lot to deal with. And then of course we've got World's Best 50 coming here in
Mhm.
North America fairly shortly. So
Oh, that's cool.
we're hosting 25 bars over 5 days at
Oh,
two of our
yeah. Okay.
places.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
with just pop-ups galore, and it is just a completely my partner deals with that side of things, but like it is a completely different
Oh, yeah, for
set
sure.
of rules. Like just do your job really well, you'll get awarded from that. But now you've got to play this like different spinning plates sort of deal.
Ah, yeah, yeah. Look, I mean, everyone has a love-hate relationship, and I have a love-hate relationship with the 50 best stuff, right? Like, and you know, I, I'm not lucky. I hate the word lucky. Like that discounts so much of the effort that I put in,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and like there's days that I'm like, oh man, I can't do this, and there's days that okay, I'm going to chase this down.
Yeah.
I think I really maybe the hardest thing as a small business is that there's a lot of facets that you struggle to achieve. Like, okay, you're a great example right at the moment, Shawn, right? You're producer, interviewer, cameraman, like thinking on your feet, how you're going to do it, throw it out to social media. Like as a small bar owner, you have to do all those things, right? Like there are so many hats. Like I'll give you an example at like 11 o'clock on a Sunday night when I want to be sitting, just hanging out or enjoying playing games on Xbox because I'm still a child. Um, and my wife hates that part of me. But for me, it's kind of like I can just put my mind somewhere else. I'm trying to throw up a poster for an event, and that poster is not correct for everybody international. I love the guys, right? So if you're listening to it, I love you all, but you don't realize how much effort and time I'm putting into it, and I then still have to go and organize the 20 other three things that work in the bar. And like it's not just one small hat, like it's so many hats, and you are constantly pulled and pushed in directions where people are like, I'll manage your social media, and you go, okay, well that's cool, but how much is it going to cost me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well that now my bar is definitely not making money
Yeah.
because I'm investing in content to make sure that the world knows that Above Board exists, right? And like Above Board has always been an organic thing. You find out about it organically, and like it's only recently that we've involved ourselves with PR, and like I really like that aspect. And and then they reached out and touched base with you and some other people, and it's really nice to have that for the first time ever an actual voice and attached to the philosophy and the idea, because we came out in 2016 and so many bars that don't look like Above Board, but they have a similar core philosophy came out later. And like we're retrospectively trying to re-engineer how we came out. And we were at the very beginning of the minimalism concept that you really don't like. And you're like, well, okay, hey, Shawn,
I'm just gonna get every minimalist bar in the world just hating on me after this podcast.
No, I don't think so. I think you have to have personality in a minimalist bar, right? Like that's the focus. If you have no personality, then it's just gonna be boring. But yeah, like I mean, as I said, reductionism. Reductionism is
I love reductionism. I could get behind reductionism.
Yeah, for sure. I found it on a Wikipedia page, and then I'm just gonna over promote it on Instagram. I'm gonna put up big letters, reductionism.
I think it's just more that there's so many young bartenders out there that see some Instagram posts, like you're mentioning social media, see some Instagram posts, and then start putting lemon like coins on every fucking king cube and every minimalist nude glass and a milk punch, and I'm like, stop it.
Yeah.
Like if I see a freaking a lemon coin on another king cube, I'm going to scream.
Okay. Oh, you want to bring back pegs? Do you want to see pegs again? You want to see the pegs, Shawn? I can say I know a tiny peg maker in Melbourne. He's an artisanal guy. He lives in Abbotsford in a loft. He's got like that yellow beanie, the white t-shirt look, the red pants, and really expensive shoes. He's an artisanal peg maker. They're like, just.
So when it comes to community in Melbourne, you said the second room. Has the second room, you've had it for like this last year or so?
Last couple years.
Yeah. Have you been utilizing that space for like seminars and pop-ups and that sort of thing a lot?
Yeah, I think it's a really good extra part of the business, right? And I'm trying to utilize it a lot more. We use it a lot now as an overflow for big groups,
Okay.
right? And not an overflow. It's not an overflow, but it's a space that accommodates groups of 4 where, like the dynamic of having a 16-seater cocktail bar, once you get a group of 3, a group of 2, and a group of 2 again, you start running out of space for any type of groups. And, no matter what I've said or no matter how we word it, like no large groups, still large groups arrive. Like, like they just pop up. Like,
yeah.
Hey, have you got space for 20 people? I'm like, no, I feel like.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. I'm really sorry. I'm not very good at maths, but 20 is way more than 16, right? Like,
and who has 19 friends
is that
on a Friday
one, or is
night?
it this one? Like, and so, like the back room is accommodating for groups of 3 or 4, which it takes a lot of pressure off the main bar. And and then we're still working through, like, as I said to a lot of people, I'm actually really not slow. Slow is not the right word, but I'm cautiously slow in doing certain things, right? I'm trying to take advantage of the back room in order to facilitate guest shifts, because a lot of people like PR reach out. They reach out and they're like, and I reach out as well. Like I'm like, hey, I know you're in the country. Why don't you come and hang out, make some drinks? Like, recently we did the cloakroom from Montreal.
Nice.
Shout out to Max and Sam. They're really good guys. And before that I did Ricardo from the Manhattan. So he's the Manhattan group manager or creative director for the Manhattan group, ex Connaught. I had Keske from Bee's Knees, Jeremiah Bar, and he owns New Jack, which is in Yokohama. And so it just gives us the opportunity for my customers to interact with different bartenders. And, I see it less as the guest shift is always like this hectic thing where people turn up and try to smash one drink. And then, as I said, everything I've said, I'm guilty of, that's not a very good drink, and then walk away. Right.
Yeah.
The comparison is a terrible thing. Right. So they don't get a immersive experience, and they don't get an experience where they get to interact, or they get the kind of challenge of all the drinks that the bartender is presenting. They're just buying one drink, moving on, and they're trying to take up as much time as the bartender. Oh, what do you think about this, and what do you think about that? And like there's obviously a platform later to talk about that, but in the middle of a guest shift is probably not the best time to be asking what your thoughts are on pegs or coin garnishes, square cubes, right? And the philosophical debates that you can have. And before that, I had good friend Nico De Soto, who made me prep for 400 hours before I arrived, and I still failed. And I sent a message to him the other day. I'm like, I would give myself 2 stars out of 5 stars for the execution of what we had, right? And and as I said, you fail sometimes. And so what has been good for me is it just adds that little bit of, well, one, honestly, it adds extra revenue to the bar. it keeps it kind of relevant sometimes if
Mhm.
you're talking about like core ideas and philosophies. It keeps it relevant, but also gives my bartenders a chance to experience international
Mhm.
bartenders, and you're building that friendly network. And, if there's always a certain amount of angst with everybody because of the competition, and we never get to just sit down in a room. It's always driven by brands. You're not just having a beer and hanging out and get to knowing each other. And sometimes the best experience I've had with bartenders is where you're locked in next to someone on a plane, right?
Yeah.
And you become friends because, like, you got a lot of common, but you just probably never sat down and had a chat, and found those core beliefs, or the kind of like the commonalities that you have as human beings. We're also highly competitive, and when you put a bunch of highly competitive people down there, like, it's pretty difficult to become friends.
Yeah, it's basically like throwing a bunch of knives into the middle of a circle room and just going, "Okay,
Yeah,
finish yourselves up, whoever's the last man
yeah,
standing."
for sure, for sure. And look, if you're on the Sean, look, I wouldn't say I'm on the outside all the time, and well, personally, I think I am, but my bartenders remind me that maybe I'm not. Um, is that if you're on the outside of a clique, it's very difficult to become a part of the clique, right?
Mhm.
And the clique can be the clique turns into lots of different ways. It's like a group of people who know each other from Singapore. That's a very difficult group to get into.
Mhm.
They're standing in a circle, and you got to become friends or talk to them and find some commonalities. And I just use Singapore as an example because it's a personal example. And then and then language barriers is another one, right? Like, obviously, and cultural barriers, they're different, and so you have to navigate all those things. And now it's a competition, but you've got cultural barriers, language barriers, clique barriers, and that's a really tough thing to negotiate. And like, even you just see the Australians standing in the corner, like,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, okay, there's three of us, and yeah, and maybe on the 50 best when we made 44, I was maybe the only Kiwi representative for the whole of New Zealand.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. Well, I don't actively participate all the time in yelling out that I'm from New Zealand, but yeah, we live in Australia still, so I've been targeted a lot when I was younger, being over here with the fosh and sucks and bosh, and chops. So I try to remain very neutral in my accent.
What's your plan for the next 6 to 12 months? What have you got on the cards?
Well, we're opening another bar, so bar two, above board 2.0. No, that's not what it's called, but it's going to be very different. I think that's the exciting thing. I've always tried to branch out, and as I said earlier in the interview, I would say above board was my dream concept come true, and then I'm working backwards from there, right? Like, you accidentally create the best bar that you wanted to ever work in,
Mhm.
and then you want to, do something similar but not the same. And so the next one is above board 2.0 with way different drinks, way different style, and no minimalism or reductionism. So it'll just be hopefully it's going to be a cool bar. But I don't know how you define cool, right? Like so
Yeah,
that's the next one. Hopefully I get some time off and have some, I'm looking at traveling a little bit, but not too much. And then,
traveling for work or traveling for with the family?
no, I mean both. Both. It's so tough at the moment, right? Like,
Mm.
you're trying to get everything lined up. Um, I that's one thing that I wish I could just like press a button and just do, right?
Yeah.
But that's what happens. You unfortunately, the lifestyle that we lead is about building these businesses, and that takes up a lot of time. It takes you
Yeah.
away, and like, takes you away from your family and the things that you really, really love, and that you enjoy, and the people that really hold you high in their life, right? But sometimes I feel like a ghost in my own house, and so it's kind of like, you're here for a few days and then you disappear.
Yeah.
You know,
Me and my wife celebrated 18 years
oh,
yesterday.
sweet man, congrats,
So we've been
yeah,
together 18 years, married for I'd have to check my watch, but
okay,
I've always said that I have a partner in my life that accepts me but never tries to understand me, because trying to
yeah,
understand me makes you go
that's
crazy.
yeah, that's a good thing, eh? Like, I think the traveling part. Everyone always thinks there's a certain amount of party involved in what we do, right? And that's very difficult to quantify as a business or a financial statement. That all our work isn't done in the boardroom at 9 a.m. with a briefcase. All our work is done at 2 a.m. Talking and establishing ideas and making friends. And so that's really difficult to quantify and to justify to your partners, right? Like, that's really tough. And that's something. That's another thing we don't talk about in the world. It's very, very one dimensional. And so that's probably been the toughest journey. Is that like following your dream and having the person that loves you on the side of that dream, and not
Hmm.
always being able to like have a force field. Not always being able to enjoy the fruits of what you do, right? And there's no guest shift where it's like, hey, by the way, we want you to come here, but and you bring your family.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
yeah,
Hey, look, we've got the budget there. Look, we're feeling really flush,
yeah.
but here's a nice suite. And by the way, this is a 42-hour plane ride. Bring your family and have a
Yeah.
great time because we want to meet them. And so they feel left out a lot, and that's a tough schism. Is it schism or chasm? Chasm.
Hmm.
It's a tough chasm to kind of like bring over the top, right?
Yeah. I'm going to
And we
Mexico
only
next
post
month.
you only post good pictures, so you
Yeah.
don't post bad pictures. Like
Oh, yeah. No
there's
one's
no
posting pictures at
you
3
know
a.m. in the morning at the
yeah, there's
airport
no
going, I hate my
anxiety
life.
photos.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm
Sitting in the mirror, hey, by the way, this is my anxiety picture today. Like I've got to get out and navigate a new city with a new language, and
yeah.
then do a guest shift with people who are judging me the whole time, right?
Okay. Hey, and thank you so much for your time. But as always, at the end of the podcast, I always do 5 deep questions,
Okay.
and they're very philosophical. So I'm gonna let them rip. What is
Okay.
one lesson or experience that has shaped your perspective the most, and how do you carry that forward in your life?
Oh, mm, man, that's a tough one.
That's why they're deep podcast questions.
Yeah, I mean, holy, we'll be here for another 2 hours. Honestly, I don't know. What shaped me? I would say travel shaped me, right? I started traveling at a young age, and I found out that I'm not always going to get along with everybody, and that, I mean, yeah, I think travel as much as you can, right? You learn a lot from traveling.
Yeah.
You interact with cultures. You interact with different people who don't always like you, and they're not scared to say it to your face, right? And they're not scared to say it to your face in another language with the body language that says that they don't
Don't
like you,
like
right?
you.
Yeah, it's pretty much the Luke Skywalker scene in Tatooine when he walks into the bar. I don't like you. He doesn't like you, right? Travel is to as many places as you can. Also, put down your mobile phone. Get away from your phone.
Nice.
Yeah, your phone is not like it's not a positive thing always in your life.
If you could leave
That's a
one
lesson I have to learn as well, right? Like
oh,
as I pick up my
100%.
mobile phone to go and
Yeah.
do the rest of my work. Yeah, take a step back and take a deep breath. The world's not that bad.
If you could leave one lasting message or piece of wisdom for the world, what would it be and why?
Uh, just be friendly to each other. And why? Because it's nicer.
Looking back on your journey, what is something you wish you had understood earlier in your life?
Maths and English.
I don't even understand why English needs to be in there. Maths is fine.
Yeah, I mean written English. I'll like written English. Like where you have apostrophes and capitals and full stops and
Okay.
spaces and proper sentencing and paragraphing. All those things I know. Like yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
how do you define success, and how has your definition of it changed over time?
Oh well, I mean, I used to define success by the amount of trophies that you have, right, and the awards that you win. But I think success is such a different creature. Success is being able to come home at nighttime and snuggle in with my wife. That's success. That's a day. That's a successful day, right? And then the other part of it is like, don't pay too much attention to the awards. They're good, and I'm guilty of my ego taking over and trying to achieve as much. But the it's achievement, right? It's not actually the awards. It's the achievement. It's the achievement, and then you get that acknowledgement of a success. The other part of that is my bar's full every night. That's pretty successful,
Mhm.
and every time it's full, I'm happy that it's successful because so many people doubted the ability to open a bar like above board, right?
Nice. What do you hope your legacy will be, and what are your steps to taking to build it?
Oh, I've got a 15-year-old son, so I'm not sure how my legacy is going to turn out. Just fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed that the AI take over and help him out. No, I don't know. I think Look, if anything you can take away from above board, whether you like it or dislike it, is that there is obviously space in this industry to create small, interesting pieces of work, right? And it's a body of work. And I use work, bar is probably a better word, but work as in like the thing that you wanted to bring into the world, the smallness of it, right? And above board was never about trying to be small or trying to be something that it wasn't. It's very much an extension of who I am as a person. It's devoid of a lot of thought, which is really cool, right? And I mean that in a like an objective way as well as a joke, that it's empty. But I think the lasting impression is that if you think you can do it and you believe in yourself, then above board is something that you can look at and apply the same thing. I believed in myself. I thought I could do it. Whether you believe in me is a different story, right? I can't control that, but I control that I believe in myself. And so above board is that belief. And if you can take that away, if anyone wants to take it away, is that if you have a small idea and you want to invest heavily in yourself, there's a possibility that will change your life.
Awesome. Well, man, this has been an absolute hoot. I don't actually have a lot of Australians on the show because of the time difference.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
because
stop calling me Australian already, Shawn, right? Like,
hey, Sam Neill is a Kiwi, but he is Australian.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, the accent throws you, but I could have just done it in my Wellingtonian accent the whole time.
The
Oh, bro,
whole
I really enjoyed opening a pub board because it was a good time, eh? Anyway, Shawn, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks so much, man. I appreciate you. I'll let you get back to work because I know it's the morning there for
Easy.
you. Thank you so much, man. It was awesome.
Easy.
Cheers,
Pleasure.
man. Bye. Thanks for listening, Pose Shifters. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoy sitting down with friends and peers and just chatting about the industry and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what's really going on out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, everything on all the platforms. Just hit it up and I'll do my best to answer any queries or questions you have. I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.